Attempt number 4. Number 4 at this video. I keep on messing it up. I'm at a point where I'm almost ready to give up on even attempting to make this video, mainly because I think I finally figured out what the problem is. But let me show you what I have. This is a Mirage B108 amplifier. 2 meters, 10 watts of input, is supposed to net 80 watts of output. Great, right? Sort of. It's not really working 100% of the time. I had this in my pickup truck last year. I have since replaced it with the Maha that I got from Adam, but I still want to figure out what is wrong with this one because I would rather have 80 watts of output instead of 30. All that to say that there's something very wrong with this. Let me show you what I mean. First, I'm going to do this without the amplifier in line so you can see the power output of the radio. I have it set to 10 watts. You guys can see that there. It has the external battery. And, you know, there's going to be some going back and forth here so you guys can see the meter as well. Kilo Niner Oscar Lima, testing 580. And I don't know whether you were able to see it or not, but in this shot, you'll see that the power went out 10 watts, and that's fantastic. Now, let's put the amplifier in line and get it to mess up because it doesn't always happen. Now we have the amplifier in line. I'm going to turn it on. It's set to FM. Preamp is off. And with any luck, you'll be able to see the scale here and the scale there, showing you the difference here. Actually, let me turn this up to the high scale on that meter because I don't want to mess up that meter in case it works. Kilo Niner Oscar Lima, testing 580. And I don't know whether you were able to see that over here or not, but the SWR is through the roof and there's 0 output over here. I'll try that again. Let me see if I can reframe that. Kilo Niner Oscar Lima, testing 580. And that is the problem, right? Something in this amp is not quite right and it's not triggering the output of it. However, let me tell you what I've done in the 3 other attempts to make this video to try to sort out what's going on here. First of all, let me turn off this amp. Let me turn off the radio and disconnect the amp from power, because in the event that I, manage to do something foolish and stupid, I don't want to hurt myself, or at least I don't want to get myself some RF burn or of any kind. This amp is by any measure old, especially when we're talking about electronics. I started by testing the electrolytic capacitors. In this amplifier, there's one there, and one there. They correspond to the drawing because, hey, you know what? The internet is fun. And I was able to verify their values. I found that this capacitor over here was reading 0 in capacitance. So I thought I found my guilty person. This portion over here is the RF detection portion of the circuit that is supposed to trip this relay. And I really thought I had figured it out there, right? I replaced that capacitor because the original was reading 0. I didn't pay enough attention to the drawing of the circuit, and that cap, even though it's 1 nanofarad, is basically tanked out almost immediately. Its job, I don't understand electronics well enough to tell you what its job is. However, I know that based on what I saw in the drawing, it's basically going to ground. So I replaced it thinking I have my guy. I don't have my guy. Things being what they are, while I was at it, I should have replaced that one and that one. They both read fine. I'm here to tell you, taking out this board from this chassis was a bit of a chore, and I'm not the world's greatest person with a soldering iron, so I was very much afraid of messing it up. After a while, I decided I gotta do something about it, so I went ahead and took a chance, and I desoldered everything that I needed to in order to get the board out, got that cap replaced. Doing it again for those 2 will probably happen because I think I found my guilty guy. We'll get there in a minute. Next, I'm frustrated. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong, and this thing isn't making all the sense I want it to make. Okay, I am not super adept with this stuff. I am, like you, an amateur. But I took the option of phoning a friend. In this case, I messaged Mike, N8YO, and I said, buddy, I need your brain. And he humored me and gave me some places to go. One of which was, listen, have you tested everything? And the fact is I hadn't. I had only tested a handful of things just to make sure. So I went through and tested all these diodes, all these capacitors, all these resistors. They all test out okay. Where's my problem? I'm still trying to figure it out. The one thing I don't have handy is an inductance meter. And yes, I can measure other things and calculate inductance, but that's a lot of math for not a whole lot of return. I'm going to assume that these inductors are in good shape because everything else in here tests okay. Next on the lineup, that is a gotcha. This variable resistor here, it shows up in the drawing. That variable resistor is this variable resistor right here. Now, if you're reading this right, which I was not, you have to take into consideration that there's a 3.3 ohm resistor also in parallel with it. So we have a 3.3 ohm resistor, a diode, and the 100 ohm variable resistor in parallel going to ground. So when I was measuring this guy, I wasn't getting a worthwhile reading, so I thought I certainly have the wrong guy. But then I phoned a friend and he said, I'm looking at the drawing of that circuit right now and you have another resistor in line. And I said, okay, cool, let me figure it out. And I did, right? Eventually I got around to reading this right and went, oh, I'm a dummy. Cool, no problem, let's do the math for this. So the math on this works out to 1 over 3.3 plus 1 over whatever this value might be. I'm gonna go with 100 ohms just for the sake of easy math. It ends up netting something like 3.18 ohms after it's all said and done. And guess what? If we come over here and we read this, getting 3 ohms total. Close enough based on tolerances to the calculation that we have. The moral here is that if you're troubleshooting this stuff just like I am, take into consideration that there are going to be some components that are going to be in parallel or in series that might mess your readings up, and you need to take that into consideration before you go, I found the guilty guy. Well, I didn't. We keep on troubleshooting. What else do we find? Well, let's pop this cover off. This is a double throw, double pole relay. It's one of 2 moving components in this entire thing. That relay and this relay are the only 2 things that move, and it makes sense that something this old mechanically is going to have some issues, especially if there's so many cycles, right? So let's turn on the radio again and show you that the relay works. Kilo Niner Oscar Lima, testing 580. Again, you can't see the radio, but you can see the meter. Nothing moved on the meter, but you can also see that the relay is definitely moving. Let me see if I can, or at the very least you hear it click. I see it moving, you hear it click. The video may not be so great for this. The next step is clean up the contacts on that relay and see if it does the trick. Well, I did. I cleaned the relay contacts with the only thing I could find that could jam in there and actually get a little bit of cleanup done, which is 2000 grit sandpaper. That did not do the trick. I greatly suspect that this is my guilty culprit right now. It would be this. This is the cap for it. I went online looking for this. This is no longer in production. However, you can find new old stock of it in a few places and they want close to $100 for it. Not worth my while. This amp is at least 30 or 40 years old. If I'm going to spend $100 on that, I'd rather spend $250, $300 on a brand new one and call it done. But guess what? We know the rating on this relay. So my next step is going to be trying to find a suitable replacement for it. Not the same exact thing, because like I said, I don't want to pay $100 for it, but we know the ratings on it because they are on the case. If I find a suitable replacement for a reasonable amount of dollars, I will go ahead and buy it, replace it. I'll bring you back and see if we actually made any difference with this. For now, this is going to go back on the shelf. I'm going to close it up, button it up, and put it back on the shelf because I haven't given up on it yet, but I have to find what I think is the bad component to try to revive this old amp. I'd love to be able to find something that works for there because when it works, it's a very nice amp. Why wouldn't I want to, keep it out of the landfill? We're also amateurs, and it means we're kind of cheap and we don't want to spend money that we don't have to. Besides, other than that, this is a pretty decent heavy-duty piece of gear. It's been working for all this time up until recently. I'm sure that if I can sort out exactly what's wrong, and I think it's that, we can get another bunch of years of life out of it for hopefully very little expense. So all I got on this one, folks. We'll catch you on the next one. 7-3.